There she is.
Hi.
Hey, Melissa, how you doing? Happy Friday morning.
I know. Happy Friday. Well,
Well,
actually, when you own your own business, weekends don't really exist. So when people say those things like, "Oh, I'm glad it's Friday," doesn't really, for me, every day is kind of the same.
understood. I get it. It sort of takes me right back to those like bake shop days where it, unless you were off, it didn't matter. It just
Exactly.
didn't matter.
Exactly.
So I was more saying good morning because we both discussed we both have a little time. We both are time zone challenged. I think we decided yesterday.
Yes, yes, exactly. I was very glad that you mentioned that it was 11 my time. Otherwise, I would have not been here. Thank you that too.
So I was before you came on. I was welcoming. We got a whole bunch of people with us already. We got like 35 people already here, and I think that's a testimony to a lot of the innovation and a lot of what you've done helped to do definitely in the modern chocolate era. How's that? I'll dub it as the modern chocolate era. So
Like that. I like that definition. Yes.
cool. And I know a little bit about your story, and I think a lot of people do. But I mean, you haven't always done chocolate,
No. And when people ask me why I actually, end up, let's say here, it's they always kind of have this idea that I'm gonna say that since I was a little girl, my dream was to be doing chocolates, right? It sounds pretty, and but it's really not the case. I end up doing chocolate because it was the only job I could find when the crisis hit Las Vegas and I was looking for a job. Funny enough, I met Vincent Pilon at a conference, and then I approached him and I said, "My name is Melissa. I live in Las Vegas as well." It was actually, I think, in Phoenix, if I'm not wrong, in one of those like world pastry forums or something like that. I don't recall. And then I approach him. I shake his hand, and I say, "My name is Melissa. I live in Las Vegas as well, and I want a job. Like I need a job." And I really think that I made this face to him that he kind of felt so bad for me. And he's like, "Oh my God, well, I'm not hiring right now. Like I'm pretty much firing everyone in my team, it was in 2009, right? Um,
right?
but let me see." And I guess I like kept like staring at him with this. I don't know. One day I asked him if he can actually maybe do the face I was doing to him. And he said, "But give me your information and I'm gonna see what I can do." And at a certain point, he kind of like started thinking, and then he said, "Do you know how to work with chocolate?" And I said, "Of course." To be honest, previous job was at Robuchon, and I would do maybe the chocolate shells to do that signature dessert where you melt the shell. But it was by no means my expertise. Like I barely knew how to temper chocolate. And then when he asked me, I said, "Of course, absolutely. I'm very good at it, because I know in the back of my head, I'm like, no matter what I need to learn, I'll do it. I'll make it happen, right?" And then he called me after and he said to me, "There's this job opportunity at Caesar's Palace. They need someone to make chocolates there and decorations. Are you interested?" And I said, "Of course, absolutely." So really funny story because in my head I thought, okay, I'm gonna join a team of people, all experts in chocolate. So no one is gonna know I don't know much, and I'm a quick learner, so I'm gonna make it happen. I show up first day. Okay, they hired me. I show up the first day, and then it's an empty room, and I'm like, okay, it's actually was like a really bad shift. It was like 5 a.m. to 1 p.m. So I said, people are coming later, like at I don't know 7 a.m. Some people they're gonna start showing up. And then I ask, and they say, "Oh, no, 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 that's why we hired you, because we didn't have anyone. So, this is the mise en place you need to do for today. And there's this, it's 4,000 rooms hotel, right?
Right.
So it's like you need to do this, 300 plaquettes for these." And I'm like looking, there was no tempering machine. And I'm like, okay, I am really in the weeds here. I started like be hated by the other employees because you know how those casinos have very strong union rules, right?
Right.
So clocking you out. But I start seeing this mise en place list, and I said, if I come only for 8 hours, I'll never be able to make it, especially with the mistakes of hand tempering and so on. So I would, if my shift was at 5 a.m., I would show up at 2 a.m. in the morning, and like not clock in and clock out, but then stay there. And so I stayed for 6 months there, and that was, let's say, the beginning. So it was not such a romantic story. It was just more like what I could get at that moment, and I kind of, stick with it.
But not atypical in this business. I mean, we've spent the last 6 months really talking to a lot of people and how they've gotten into chocolate. And there's I had a dream one night that I wanted to, open a chocolate business with somebody's story. And it's like, so what did you do with that? They're like, well, we opened a chocolate business. I'm like, oh, okay.
That's
Like even me, like you told the story, like you didn't know what you were doing. When I interviewed at Tomrick, they're like, so are you good at molding chocolate? And I'm like, sure. I think I'd molded one rabbit my entire, like one Easter Sunday, right? When I was at the Ritz-Carlton, like one bunny. Sure, I'm great at this. No problem. I'll pick it up.
Of course. I think it's not so important in life what you're good at. It's how you have to, like, that you can make it happen, and that you learn anything you want to learn, and you have the desire and the passion and the discipline. So it doesn't, yeah, totally understand that.
Right. I mean, I don't think it's interesting. Like what we do, we work with our hands, and whether we're making, pastries or we're making chocolate, it's not hard. But you use the word discipline there. It's about wanting to do it correctly, and wanting to do it correctly not once but 1,000 times in a row.
Yes.
Right. And so if you're making that chocolate curl, it's the same as making the gianduja praline. It's got to be perfect.
Of course. Well, I started a blog maybe 3 weeks ago, and my last post was about self-discipline. And I have a unique, in a way, career, because very early in states of my career, I opened my own business, or I co-own my first business. And so I've been my own boss for already, many years. So from the very beginning, yeah, I work at Robuchon, and then I work at a few casinos, but let's say those were only maybe 4 years out of my career. The rest, or 5, the rest I've been my own business. So I've owned my own business. So that means I'm my own boss.
Right.
And I was very aware from the very beginning that it was up to me how far I could go. I didn't have a boss yelling at me, I didn't have anyone telling me how to do things, or that I should be faster, I should whatever, neater. It was just all up to me, and it's a constant competition, but with myself, on how far I can go, and how I'm never satisfied. That's why I get upset every time the class is over and I start trying things that for me everything could be better and shinier and prettier and tastier and whatever. Like I'm the biggest critic. And of course, it's like everything in life, right? There's a good part and a bad part about being like that. So the good part is that, of course, I feel every time I compare myself to where I was before, or who I was before, I most of the times I see an evolution. But it's also hard on myself because I suffer a lot, of course. I feel like people tend to be way too content. And in my classes, I always tell them, like, if you're making a new product, don't take them home and tell your family you made it, just tell them someone gave it to you. So they're honest with their opinion. But of course, we always want to hear what we want to hear. So yeah, we take it to our wife or husband or partner, parents, and they're going to tell you it's the best bonbon they ever tried, the most beautiful thing. And it's not the way that you grow, right? So I remember from the very beginning sending bonbons to my friends, but colleagues that I admired, that I knew they were far away from me, like much more knowledge, better palates. Ask them, what do you really think about this? I want your honest opinion. And I remember everybody telling me, oh, this sucks. Like, this ganache is whatever, right? Because my background was a pastry chef, and I wanted to start doing this. So I think that self-discipline and that is extremely important. And then your own criticism will always push you forward.
Yeah, I think it's staying in that, right? I mean, I think that's the advantage of having that chef that's going to push you, or whoever that is in your life that's going to push you, right? They're going to keep leaning on you. Um, it's when you have to lean on yourself to sort of look for that next step, it becomes harder, though, right? I mean, I think that's the truth about it, right? I mean, I think it's why early on it's important for us to keep going to the new shop, right? Like not to get too comfortable with that one chef or with that one dough sheeter, right? Because then we can do the same thing over and over again. But it's that, what is the next step of the journey, right? And it's got to be harder being your own boss. I mean, you said something to me yesterday about um, I didn't know enough not to do this, right? That you were talking about that you're thinking about doing a pop-up shop in front of the school, and because you have product and you need to do something with it. And that idea, maybe it's crazy, but what the hell? Like, what's the worst that's going to happen, right? I mean, I think somebody just asked the question, what are some things you wish you knew before you started? And what are some of those things that you wish you knew before you opened your own business about chocolate, about whatever?
It's funny because lately, how can I put this? Like lately, I am so aware of how our lives, our personal lives, affect so much our work in a positive and negative way. And when the situation we're living right now, where everything is just collapsing in front of our eyes, um, make us very sensitive, and the approach of. So, for example, I'll give you just the example. Like, okay, I used to have a very successful hands-on school, and one day this pandemic ruined everything, right? So, what is the first approach? I'll tell you what happened. The first 5 days or a week maybe, I just die inside. I said, okay, everything that I've been working on for 5 years or 4 is just going to end because everybody wanted their refunds for the classes they already paid for, and no one was registering. And I have employees and huge, like my running expenses are super high. So I said, okay, it's over. I have to close the doors. There's nothing I can do. Then I was able to surpass that, thank God, fast enough to say, no, I need to find something, and how can I shift things? And the way to do it was just opening the online school. So really, in like 1 week, we turned the entire school, without knowing how, into an online school, and with cell phones and tripods and lights and stabilizers and ourselves filming ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, we did exactly the same thing here, right, Melissa? Like, I sat down with my assistant and I said, I don't know if we have a job in a week, 10 days, and what are we going to do? Like,
Exactly.
OS, what are we going to do? And
So,
we did a
but
lot of the same stuff, right?
to go to the actual question, unfortunately, it's like what I thought that I needed to know before, or the mistakes that I thought that I did, but I learned, does not apply to my current situation. So my best advice will always be, you need to be able to be flexible and adapt to yourself, but really adapt, because we say, oh yeah, I'm reinventing my life. 99% of the time it's not true. I had a very special talk with some Japanese people, or a group that I am going to, let's say I'm going to belong to. And it was funny because at a certain moment I said, I'm not going back to where I was before. And they were very shocked. They say, what do you mean? Everybody's dying to go back. Like, that's the first time we hear that someone is saying, I'm not going back. Like, what do you mean by that? And I say, well, the thing is that human beings are very afraid. We're all very afraid of change. And we say we're not, but we are, right? So when suddenly everything changes in our lives, we get very uncomfortable and very scared. Um, so I'm just trying to really shift in a way that I'm not going back, and I'm always pushing forward with myself and with the school. So if I already here, why even trying to like go backwards? If it makes sense what I'm saying. So the learning curve on owning your own business, it's constantly also changing. It's not. So I am a person that I know how to do chocolates. I never studied business. I never study marketing. I never study any of that. So of course, if I can give advice, yes, maybe it would be to like know a little bit about business and a little bit of marketing and all that before opening your own business. I also think that taking a class does not give you enough knowledge to open a business. I feel everybody wants to now suddenly leave on a chocolate shop idea, and they take a few of my classes and they really think they're ready to open their own business. And I think it takes much more than a few classes to start, right?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that, you know, we've seen this growth of chocolate in the last 5-10 years, right? And there's a lot of really great product out there. So I mean, there are a lot of people doing some really fabulous things, but I think the difference between the successful chocolatier and the less successful chocolatier, you know, I don't know that there's one thing you can put your finger on about that, right? It's passion, which we've talked about, and commitment, and something like what my French friends would say, the je ne sais quoi, right? I mean, that thing that I don't know what it is.
I do think I have the answer to that. I might be completely wrong, but that was another question on this interview that I told you I had, and I really kind of gave a lot of thought on. I also teach a class called Running a Chocolate Production, where in that class I actually teach my background on wholesale, of owning a wholesale business, because now I have a school, but I co-own a wholesale business here in Las Vegas. And it was a completely different approach, right? It was mass production and productivity and how to do things that were delicious but fast to create flavors that everybody likes. So that's kind of the idea of the class. And the focus is talking every single thing I do. I kind of mentioned that background on wholesale production and so on. And in that class, I actually started the class with a question. And I asked students, what does it mean success for you? And I think before you even start a business, that should be the question you should ask yourself. Because does it, for everybody, and everybody will have a different answer, right? And everybody has the right to think differently. So if you ask me, what does it mean success for me? I can guarantee you not too many people that owns a business have the same idea. For me, does not mean a bank account full. I actually do believe that if I don't wake up excited about what I'm going to do, it doesn't matter how much money I have, right? For me, that does not translate into having a successful business / life. So if you are able to keep yourself motivated with your work, and that's the beauty of teaching, actually, because when you teach, you're impacting positively the lives of others, then that means I'm a successful person. So talking about the other aspect, I do believe that when you made a comment like, what is the difference between a successful chocolatier and supposedly not successful? Especially now, people need to connect in a different way. So I'll give you the example. There's 2 shops, both shops with good products, right? But in one shop, the person that says hello to you, smiling, knows what they're talking about, feels passion about the products. And then you also see the owner approaching you and talking about what was the inspiration on this product. And then maybe they walk out the shop with the box of chocolate they just paid for, and the bag falls in the floor and all the bonbons get damaged. And then they enter the shop not knowing what to do, and you say, don't worry, you know, like, I'll give you new ones. I'm giving you just a simple example. And then that same person the next week goes to the other shop, and even if the product even tastes better, if the interaction is completely different, and there's not a real human being behind, you know, that story, and they couldn't care less about you, and the person that is giving you is very cold, there's no story behind, I do think that the person, business number one, has much more chance of survival and the support of the community. So for me, and this is very personal. So it's the same with the school right now. Exactly the same thing. People have the choice right now whether they pay for my classes versus a different online school, and very soon I'm sure there's going to be hundreds in the world. But it's the interaction I give, the service I give, how I connect from the heart, and not from like, I don't believe people come to my classes to learn how to make shiny bonbons. If that was the case, trust me, I wouldn't be teaching. It wouldn't be interesting for me. But if I feel that I'm really acting in a different level, then it makes sense.
Right. But it's all about passion, right? It's all about commitment.
And honesty, I really believe in honesty. Like for me, I could be the most passionate person. And there's so many teachers out there that absolutely love what they do, right? But the approach is a little bit different. Sometimes they don't give the real recipe. Sometimes they don't. I give you an example. You take my class today, if you were a student, you come to my class and you take class. And after a class, I always send the revised recipe book. Because, of course, there's always mistakes in the recipe book. It's
right.
almost impossible that there's not a mistake on a typo, on a number. When the class is over, I'm always, throughout the class, we're always reviewing. For example, I take the AW of every single ganache after the class. If I see that the AW that I'm giving to the students is very different from the one that they're just tasted, I know there's a mistake in the recipe. So little things like that. So at the end of the class, I take my time to add the recipes that maybe I added because I have extra time, or things that I changed because last minute I thought that bonbon should be green but blue, and if there's a few mistakes, and I take the time and I always send my revised recipe book. So the connection or what I'm, I know students appreciate that. They know that because of course we go back to the ego. So I'm admitting that I made a mistake, right? But there's transparency. So if someone takes my class and there's a mistake, and even if I find it later on, they're gonna, receive an email from me saying, "I'm sorry, I apologize, there was a mistake." They already paid. I don't have to do that. But that's the type of connection, and that's the type of relationship I want to take, or I want to have with the students of the school. And they also know that if they take a class today with me and in 6 months they send me an email, I'm going to take my time and answer that email. It's not like, oh, I'm going to give you only 2 weeks to answer your questions, and after you don't exist for me. So when they have the choice what school to go to, I can guarantee you they're going to come to my school.
I think you and I are on the same page about a lot of that stuff. That, obviously I work for Tom Rick, and there's a sell me piece of equipment over my shoulder, right? And there's sell me on my jacket and all that stuff. But I have to answer that question honestly when someone comes and says, "Hey, what is the right piece of equipment for us?" Because there are times where it's not a sell me piece of equipment. It may not be a Melissa Coppel class. It's not the right place for somebody. And I hope that we're all like that. I mean, I really do. Like, my hope is that everybody that's teaching and sharing information is going to be like that. But you're probably right. I mean, not everybody is. And not every person in business is going to be completely honest about what's in that recipe or what's in that box, which, I mean, you're right. I think that is a big piece of that puzzle, but I think for you, listening to you talk about it, that's how passionate you are, that there's no other way, right? There's no, it's a genuine answer, right? I have to give you the genuine answer. I can't give you the best business answer here, because the best business answer isn't to send revised recipe books 6 weeks later, because it's not contributing to the next revenue stream, right?
Of course.
I mean, it's really, I mean, it is, but it isn't. I mean, it is because that person, then there's goodwill and they're going to come back, but it's not the next revenue. It's really not, And somebody asked this question too, on that. How different is that online versus in person? I mean, what's really the difference between teaching that way then?
There is good. There's a very positive thing about online teaching, and it is the fact that I can reach the entire world, right? So just going back to my beginnings, it's funny because people now see the glamour, the beautiful school that I travel around the world. So it's like everything is glamorous, right? But that's in the last few years. I've been in this profession, I don't know how many years already. I feel old, so I'm not going to reveal the number, but around 20 years. And I grew up, I'm from Colombia, and my parents are beautiful people, very, I would say, like hippies, that couldn't, afford sending me anywhere. So I wanted to be a chef, but good luck. There's no schools in your city, and there's nothing you can do. I remember seeing books because I say, okay, if I cannot go anywhere and there's no schools in my city, I can get books. But the books, I couldn't afford the books because they were expensive books. So I never forget that. For me, that, that's why also I think I teach in a very different way. And so now with the online school, it makes me excited to know I reach the entire world. People that will never have the chance to come to the US because of the money, the time, the visa, the requirements, even the language. So that is the beautiful thing. It becomes a very inclusive way of teaching, and that part I love. The disadvantage, of course, we make it very real, and we have close-up cameras, and we have all these things. Again, it's not the same as touching. But I think that every single person that has taken my classes, can appreciate and can feel, that it's not like it's 50% less. If I'm trying to say, of course, it might not be the same, but it's close, and it's the fact that you can, take notes. A lot of, for example, the feedback that I've been receiving is that because there's no people around, talking, asking, moving, they can be very, very concentrated. So I think that the part every single time I make a recipe, I don't teach in a traditional way. If I'm saying, for example, I'm making a caramel and I start with sorbitol, I explain why I'm adding sorbitol first and what is sorbitol doing to the recipe and why I have glucose syrup and what's glucose syrup. So there's a lot of talk in just making a caramel. When I teach, it's not like, okay, boil milk and then pour. That's not my way of teaching.
Right.
So in online classes, people can learn a lot more about the theory because they're by themselves with headphones, taking notes, and with a recipe book, and it's just, so that theory part, I think, really gets seen much better than an online class where you have 14 people around you talking and asking and making,
right.
And it's hard to take notes and so on. Of course, in the part of touching or smelling or so on, you're losing a little bit. So like everything in life, you can't have it all.
Yeah, I did an online demo in Dallas on Sunday at the Dallas Chocolate Festival. I was doing a training for a customer in Los Angeles on Wednesday. I taught someone how to pan that were from Connecticut yesterday, and I'm talking to you today. Like, that's not right. That's not possible. That wasn't possible 6 months ago. I mean, it was, but it wasn't. It really wasn't.
Of course.
So
no, there's a lot of beauty in it, I think, and now I'm actually working on a new project because what you said earlier about maybe someone is asking for a machine and you say, I don't know, for example, the honest opinion would be, this is not a type of machine that I can offer you because this is not good for what your needs, for example. It would be the same for me. Like if someone tells me I don't even know how to temper chocolate, of course I'm not going to tell them that my class is the right fit because it's not. They need to know at least how to temper chocolate. So now we're working on this new project on precisely that, like having a basic chocolatier program so people can take that first step. And then they can join these other classes,
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things I love about chocolate is, like, I think the more that I learn and the more that I know, the less I know.
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
It gives me an opportunity to, learn new stuff. Like we're working on the whole project with gummies and jellies right now, and my assistant's going to be in a class at the University of Wisconsin on Monday, but from her desk. I mean, those are incredible opportunities that this crazy world's presenting us, right?
Yeah.
And I'd rather be in person with people, and I'd rather be able to go out to dinner and not think about it. But you're right. The fear of change is the problem. The change isn't the problem.
Yeah.
Right. We
think
get hung up about that.
Problems. If I have to say the number one, it's ego. I was talking to a friend of mine, which actually confessed that it was because of me that he opened his business, which I actually didn't know. He took a class with me in the past, and he's a good friend of mine, but he's a savory chef that wanted to learn about chocolate. And he said that that the way that I approached the class and made everyone feel comfortable, and especially like if it's especially a hands-on class where there's interaction between students, I always start the class please asking everyone to leave their egos outside the door, that I really don't care their level of expertise, that everybody has the same right and everybody's here for the same reason, right, which is learn. So once you kind of settle everyone down and you put everyone on the same level, I remember, because I have memory of my first classes at the French pastry school, where you had these top chefs that are already the executive chefs of casinos or hotels or wherever, really making feel whoever didn't have enough experience really bad and very uncomfortable and very nervous. And first question when you enter one of those classes, oh, where do you work? And if your jacket doesn't have the name, you're no one. I'm not even gonna bother myself talking to you, right? So I remember that. I remember that.
Yep.
And I remember how I was treated differently before I have my name in the jacket versus when I had the Robuchon name on the jacket and my name under, right?
Yeah.
So I have memory and I remember that. So
yeah.
I never want students to feel how I felt or how I saw others be treated, right?
Yeah.
So if you put everyone on the same level, then they kind of chill and calm down. So then we talk about ego, you know, and the funny, very funny thing is usually those people that are the ones with the highest issues with ego are the ones that you gave them a spatula and they don't even know how to handle the mold well. So it's very ridiculous, right? So, and this with everything. I was discussing with someone the other day that was telling me, I received beautiful emails from my students thanking me for the class, whatever. And one of them said to me, I can't believe that in your class I can ask anything I want and you answer it. And you don't get upset because because you're asking something that is not related. And immediately I click in, I'm like, oh my God, I remember that too. That there's this amazing chef, you know, teaching a class, and you say, but why are you adding lecithin? And they get upset at you. Maybe it's because they don't even know why you add lecithin. Whatever it is, the reason, right? So it's all related to, is it so bad to say I don't know? Really, is that bad? Why don't you say I don't know, but I'm going to find out, and tomorrow I'm going to tell you, right? So ego
that's a technique we use here. In our classes here, that's a technique we use. We have a dry erase board. Right, and if a question comes up that we don't know the answer to, it goes on the board. And my job as a teacher is to learn the answer for the next morning, right? Like, because I don't know.
Yes, of course.
Is an opportunity. It's an opportunity to get better at what we do, you know. And I think it's funny, Melissa. You were telling your story about that first class, and my first class that I ever took was with Olivia Bajard in MLF. And Norman Love, right? And I walk in the room and I'm a cook 3, right? I've won a contest at the bake shop I work in, and my chef sends me, and it's 8 executive pastry chefs from, you know, this property and this property and me, and I had a panic attack, like, as people are introducing themselves, like, and you know what? You're right. Like, I'm sure I got more out of that class because I had nothing at stake, right? Because I wasn't worried about impressing anybody. Because my ego wasn't going to get hurt, right? If I didn't know how to do something. So I could go to Olivia Bajard, I don't know what you mean. Can you tell me? Because I don't know what that is, right? And when do you get those opportunities? They're few and far between. Unless you can set the ego aside, right? And say, I don't know.
Exactly. No, I have a very funny, ¿cómo se dice anécdota, Laia? Se me fue la palabra. ¿Cómo se dice anécdota? I forgot the word. My daughter's in front of me.
Anecdote.
Yeah, that's how you say?
Anecdote. A little story, like a story to like, anecdote.
Heard it in English. So when I work at Robuchon, all my salary, I was lucky enough to spend it taking classes. So I went to the French pastry school and also a little bit the Chocolate Academy, but mostly the French pastry school. And I took pretty much every month, I would go and I take a class there. And I saw them all. I mean, from Pierre Hermé, you know, Michelak, Olivier Bajard, all the MOFs at the moment.
Right.
I saw them all, Paco Torreblanca, or Oliver Gallagher, every single person. I went to those classes. And it was very funny because every time I would return to Las Vegas, even in the plane, I was returning the plane, and I would always be very, I would say, down a little bit, like kind of sad. Like there was somehow I understood that I learned, but there was something missing, and there was something off, and I could never figure what it was. Every time, and then again, next month it would happen the same. Next month it would happen the same, and I did that for like 3 years. And then, anyways, this was 10 years ago or 12, whatever. And then last year I was, or actually might be this summer, 2 years ago, I was teaching a class in Poland. And I had all these really strong Polish men taking my class. And I don't know why, in the middle of the class, this thing hit me. Like I understood, or the answer came to me after 10 years, that the reason why I was feeling like that is because all these teachers made me feel like I was never going to be like them. Like there was this thick wall where they were awesome and we were stupid, right? And it did affect me. I'm a very sensitive person, and I really energetically really affect me. I'm not trying to say they treat me bad. None of them treated me ever bad, right? It was just energetically. I'm talking about that. And funny enough, it clicked in after 10 years. And I do believe that that's why I teach in a very different way. And I don't put any walls between the students, and I'm very approachable. And this is my way of teaching. Everybody has the right to have their own. But I think that if we understand how important a teacher is in someone else's lives, teachers that teach around the world, pastry chefs or chocolatiers, would take it a little bit more serious, because right. you can really affect someone in a negative or in a very positive way. And actually, I was telling my daughter this morning, she had this interview she had from school, and I was talking about this. Funny enough, they were asking these questions, and I said, well, if you have a teacher that tells you that you're really bad at something, you're gonna believe it and you might quit, and that could be your road to happiness and whatever, productivity, however you want to call it. So it's interesting how you can affect someone's life so strong being a teacher.
Right. Hey, let's switch gears a little bit. Can we do that? Can we change direction?
Oh, of course.
Let's talk a little bit about chocolate. What the heck? So, I mean, what's the favorite piece in the case right now of the recipe you're working on that's your favorite?
Let me think. I think that I have a weakness for hazelnut. So anything that has hazelnut, I love. And I did a dessert bar that it's everything hazelnut. So it's a ganache with Saphir Caramel 35 and hazelnut. It has hazelnut paste and hazelnut oil inside. And then there's a gianduja that I make myself. And then it has caramelized pieces of hazelnut inside. So I think that might be something that one of my favorites for sure.
What's the recipe that you were sure everybody was going to love and nobody liked it?
I don't think I ever made something that no one liked. I have done recipes that are, a bit strange, but more I would say that cause reaction. So one of the recipes that I did that actually, let's say it's a different thing or what you're asking, but there's a recipe that I did with black olive marzipan and a strawberry ganache. And that recipe is the opposite. Everybody thought they were going to hate it, and everybody loved it. And of course, there's things usually that, the thing is that right now I restrain myself. So I used to be, I want to be creative, and I'm going to, and I want to be so unique, and I will be making this morel mushroom ganache. Things like that, but this is in the past. Like right now, I really restrain myself on flavors. So I do have things that people might not like, but you know what I mean? I don't push the boundaries that much anymore.
What's funny though is that there's a comment underneath here that says, "I like the chocolate with tomato sardines." So I don't
Huh.
know if that to me is pushing a little bit. That's not your grandma. That's not your grandma's caramel.
No, and I do believe that I think there's a little bit of a difference. People misunderstood creativity. So creativity does not mean mixing random things that no one even know how to pronounce, right? Creativity is it's something else. So for me, using a unique ingredient surrounded by elements that you will maybe know. For example, last class I did a really nice recipe. It was a banana caramel and a black truffle ganache. Yeah, maybe black truffle, it's a little bit unique, but then you surround it with banana, with caramel and everything. At the end, um, you have, you know what I mean? Like, it's,
Yeah,
yeah.
I
So
think that's the problem. I think that's the problem with food right now. Like not necessarily chocolate. Is it because you've put 16 different components on a plate doesn't mean it's
yeah,
a good meal, right? I
and
appreciate the
I
foam, but if
say,
it doesn't need a foam, it doesn't need a foam.
exactly. I always say, really like put a shell, don't decorate the shell, right? You make a thin shell, and you put your elements inside, one or two or whatever you're doing, and then close your eyes and try it. You try it, and then you ask yourself if you would eat a second piece, and you have the answer if that's a good product or not. But again, if you try just a little bite, you think it's good, but it mostly sounds cool, but you're not sure, and then you take it home to your family, and they tell you it's the best thing they ever had. Well, not sure if it's a good product, right?
Yeah, I mean,
So,
I'm with you. I'm kind of like you talk about hazelnut. I'm a sucker for a really dark caramel, right? And like we can do things with a caramel, but we don't have to, right? Like if it's a good caramel, it's a good caramel. Like
oh yeah,
a little, you know what I mean? And I think that you sometimes we see flavors and we see people try to do things for the tag on the box rather than the flavor inside the piece.
and you actually ask many chocolatiers, and they all will tell you that their best seller is the sea salt caramel. So why we're trying to not, you know, use that profile that everybody loves? Oh, because I want to be unique.
Right.
What by that? Like, yeah, people want a dark chocolate ganache. People want a milk chocolate ganache. They want sea salt caramel, and then yeah, maybe have the flavor of the month, and then you get your creativity out there. Because I do believe that it's important to play a little bit, but your collection should not be based 100% of these flavors that no one wants to eat. You
Right.
right? So who are you trying to impress? Would be maybe the question to ask ourselves, right? Who are you?
Yes. What's interesting, so there's a chocolatier in Memphis, and Philip Ashley and I have become friends over the last couple of months, and he's not a traditional. He doesn't come from food. He came from another industry, and he and I had a long talk about flavor, and that's what we're going to talk about next week, because he does one that's a blue cheese ganache, right? And he explained that people first heard that and they didn't understand because that doesn't make any sense. But when you really begin to talk about it, those flavors with chocolate do make sense, right? So it's not just there to be creative, right? It's not just there because I'm gonna shock you, right?
Of
And I
course.
think and I think that's kind of what you're talking about. Is it banana and caramel? Sure. And does black truffle make sense there? But black truffle doesn't make sense necessarily in a white chocolate ganache because I'm going to shock somebody with
Exactly.
truffle.
When we do the hands-on classes here, there's in some of the classes, not we do an exercise between groups. And the reason why is I like to teach a little bit the basics of formulation, how from zero you get a ganache. And groups always, between three or four, they come up with a idea. And I have to say, a lot of their ideas for me, I'm like hesitant, and then they taste very good, and vice versa. And so I remember because the blue cheese was one of them. So someone or a group did like pear and blue cheese. They're not very good. So there's some room, but I do. If my advice will always be, don't fool or don't fill your case with random flavors like that. I don't think it's a good idea. I do think there's room for fun, and also chocolate lovers like chocolate taste. So
Right.
we cannot forget about that, right?
Right. I mean, so somebody asked earlier about what's next for chocolate and what's next for innovation. I mean, what is the next frontier, do you think? Not just for Melissa Coppel, but for, our industry. I mean, where obviously in chocolate right now, no sugar added is big, and in certain parts of the country, the whole THC cannabis thing is obviously huge in chocolate. But I mean, for the confectioner, what do you think what's the new frontier?
I think a social compromise will be there, fair trade, of course, limitations for people with limitations like, I don't know, lactose free, sugar free.
Yeah.
I think all that would be kind of like where I see everything going, especially, I mean, not only chocolate, like a pastry class don't sell, right? But if you
Right.
start saying gluten-free, paleo, keto, then people get interested. So it's the same with this. Also, vegan chocolates, I think, are a huge trend. That's why I actually created a class that I teach with Andres, which is 100% vegan class, because I think it's a huge, huge interest right now. So, and everything that it's a little bit less conventional, I do believe that it's where this is all going. Um, you know,
Right.
people the opportunity, to have chocolates that maybe they couldn't. If every meal chocolate has lactose, or every meal this and whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
that was,
to be honest,
so I did it.
I don't really worry so much about that. I kind of try to reinvent in a little bit different, like I guess I don't go with the flow. I don't know if it makes
Yeah, when I taught on Sunday, I taught at the Dallas Chocolate Festival, and I did a thing on ganache and just about functionally how do you put a ganache together. And the questions were about how do I eliminate sugar, how do I change, how do I go vegan, how do I get rid of the fat, right? Like what do I use instead of a fatted dairy item to make a ganache, right? I mean, I'm with you. I think health is the next frontier, and making it taste not any different,
but
right? So that it tastes the same.
will always be that there's very little knowledge in chocolate. So if you, for example, here that I've been having the school for 4 years, and I had all kinds of profiles of chefs teaching and all kinds of students. You can see in a pastry class, everybody kind of knows the basics. You talk, whatever, pâte sablé, pâte brisée, this, that, pastry cream, crème anglaise, whatever, pastry. People kind of know. But once you start talking about chocolate, there's very little knowledge, very little. Even people that have businesses for many years, even there's not too much knowledge. So that's the issue we're having, because you have a shop and you have no idea how to formulate your own recipes. You have no idea
Right.
what's the shelf life of your recipes. You have no idea how to make a vegan recipe, and so on. So the foundation will always be knowledge. Like if you know, you can do anything you want, really, and that's the beauty. And that's the beauty of being a teacher, really. That's why I feel that, yeah, I could be just selling chocolates, right? And I could make much more money. Let's be honest about it. But it's not interesting for me. I do want to sell some bonbons, but it's not my purpose in life, really.
All right. Well, I feel bad asking this next question then. So bear with me because I asked this question to everybody. So you stop at the convenience store on your way home because you need a gallon of milk for the fridge at home, and you're kind of walking back to the register, and you're in the mass market candy aisle, and you decide you're going to buy one. What do you buy?
There's a few that I like,
What's
actually.
what you get one. Pick
Uh,
one.
uh, I like Kit Kat.
Thank you. You're the first person that's answered with my answer. So you're now
Yes,
my favorite. You're now my favorite guest on Chocolatier Chat. You and I are now like
I have something
you're
to,
my favorite.
especially the Japanese one. I don't know if you've ever tried. Yeah.
So my boss, Tim, I think you've met Tim. Tim
Yeah.
Tim was in Japan like a year and a half ago, right? And he gets back and he calls me. He's like, I'm really excited. When are you in? And I'm like, I'm in every morning at 8:30, Tim. Right? He goes, great. I'll meet you in your office at 8:30 tomorrow morning. I'm like, okay, thank you. So he comes in with a bag, right? Like a shopping bag that he bought. He'd been to the Kit Kat store in Tokyo,
Oh
and
yeah,
I
it's
think
amazing.
he bought everything. And he like
Oh my.
dumps this bag on my desk and he goes, "These are for you, but I want a report." I'm like, "A report? Like about what?" He's like, "I don't know, but you got to try all of this and tell me about it." I'm like, "Okay, I'm game." So yeah,
That's such horrible job.
I know I've got the worst job in the world. I get to work with really great equipment. I get to hang out with people like you, and I get to eat
Oh
Kit Kat
my,
bars.
I know.
Hey, the Kit Kat story though is that Kit Kats obviously in the U.S. are made by Hershey, right? Everywhere else in the world they're made by Nestle still, and there's a border that's only a mile away, and so I buy my Kit Kats in Canada whenever I'm across the border because they're better.
That chocolate here is really bad. I just like the crunch here, but when I go to, well, I didn't know that detail. I just knew that here is much sweeter and not so creamy.
Yeah,
And yeah, the quality of
yeah.
the Japan is amazing.
So my wife tells me that it's not a candy bar as much as it's a chocolate covered cookie.
Yeah, exactly. That's we have one in Colombia too, similar, and it's the one I like. It's a crunchy cookie with a thin layer of chocolate. Yeah, it's very good.
Right. Well, and then it always gets to beg the question, then is a Twix bar a candy bar or is it a chocolate covered cookie? How do you, anyway, that's for another time. Melissa, I'll take that class. When you do the Kit Kat bar class and like
Yeah,
chocolate covered cookies, I'm in.
yes. Oh, we could do it together. Why
We could do
not?
it virtually. We could do part of it here and part of it there.
Yes, yes, yes,
All right.
absolutely. I actually,
Hey,
I'm trying to explore on those. So I started a blog that I said it's every week, and then I'm also gonna start some talks, and bringing community. I think it's important. So what you're doing is really great.
this has been great, Melissa. We're getting close on time because Instagram's going to cut us off at an hour. But one, thank you very much. I know you're busy with everything that you do, so thank you for spending some time with us, and thanks for telling a little bit about your story. I think, like I said at the beginning, there are a lot of people that you're an inspiration to. So you spending some time with us today has been super duper. And
Thank you so
we're
much.
here. We're supposed to come and visit. Like I was on
Yes.
my calendar that I was supposed to come and visit with the new project, and then COVID. So the second I'm able to get on a plane, you're on the list.
Oh my God, of course. It would be great to show you the school and to spend some time together and debate how we're gonna approach the Kit Kat thing.
Hey, do you want to try to? We could try to do something together, like a real program, couple-day
Yeah,
program if you want. We could do part of it here, part of it there.
we could do like a live bet, like cooking something. That would be fun.
I'll email you about that. Let's doodle on that, how to
Email
make
me,
that
yes.
happen.
Of course. I'm all
Cool.
about collaborating on things. So just think about what we can do and we do it.
Yeah. Hey, last question, because somebody asked this. When the world does get back to normal and we're getting on airplanes again, I'm assuming you're going to do classes in person. Are you still going to do virtual classes too?
I am going to offer some hands-on classes. Not as before. It's not going to be every month, and it's not going to be every single chef that comes in school. But I will offer some. But we're going to be 80% online. We're going to stay online.
Yeah, I don't know what we're going to be yet. We haven't
Yeah.
decided what we're doing. Though I've got the guys coming in to give me the quote on the fancy like camera system on Monday because we're gonna. I think this is new. This is the way it's going to go. It's going to be people aren't going to come and visit as much.
No, absolutely. That this is the way we're going, and it is for good. We have to see it that way. We have to, approach it with positivity, and we're gonna make great things. And as I said, like for example, if you talk about competition, then it's good because if everybody does it, then we need to make sure that there's a difference between what we're doing, correct? So there's
Right.
in it too. I feel people get very scared also of that. If I open a chocolate shop here, it's good if someone next door opens a different chocolate shop, right? So it's I think it's positive. So I'm excited.
All right. Well, again, thank you very much.
Thank you for
People
your
know how to find. People know how to find you, right? It's Melissa Coppel, Chocolatier on Instagram, right?
correct. Melissa Coppel Chocolatier. I have that one, and I have the school, which is Melissa Coppel school, I think. I don't even know. I think Melissa Coppel school, yeah.
All right, and because somebody asked too, this little interview is going to be on the Tom Rick Instagram live page, and eventually will be on our YouTube page. So, Melissa, thanks a bunch, and have a great weekend.
You
Even though it
too.
doesn't matter.
Thank you so much for the invitation, and let's talk about other things that we can do together.
We'll do something together soon. All right, great.
Absolutely.
Thanks a bunch. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.